The point of public relations slogans like "support our troops" is that they don't mean anything. They mean as much as whether you support the people in Iowa. Of course, there was an issue. The issue was, do you support our policy? But you don't want people to think about the issue. That's the whole point of good propaganda. You want to create a slogan that nobody's going to be against, and I suppose everybody will be for, because nobody knows what it means, because it doesn't mean anything. But its crucial value is it diverts your attention from a question that does mean something. Do you support our policy? And that's the one you're not allowed to talk about. So you have people arguing about, do I support the troops? Of course I don't not support them, and so on. And then you've won. That's like Americanism and harmony. We're all together, empty slogans. Let's somehow join in, and let's make sure that we don't have these bad people around who disrupt all of our harmony with their talk about class struggle and their rights and that sort of business. Well, that's all very effective. It runs right up to today. And, of course, it is carefully thought out. The people in the public relations industry aren't there for the fun of it. They're doing work. They're trying to instill the right values. In fact, they have a conception of what a democracy ought to be. It ought to be a system in which the specialized class are trained in order to do their work for the service of the masters, and the rest of the population ought to be deprived of any form of organization, because organization just causes trouble. They ought to be sitting alone in front of the television set and having drilled into their heads daily the message which says the only value in life is to have more commodities, or to live like that rich middle-class family you're watching, and to have nice values like harmony and Americanism. And that's all there is in life. You may think in your own head that there's got to be something more in life than this, but since you're watching the tube alone, you assume I must be crazy because that's all that's going on over there. And since there is no organization permitted, that's absolutely crucial. You never have a way of finding out whether you're crazy, and you just assume it because it's the natural thing to assume. So that's the ideal. And great efforts are made into trying to achieve that ideal, and there is a certain conception of democracy behind it. The conception of democracy is the one that I mentioned. The bewildered herd are a problem. We've got to prevent their rage and trampling. We've got to distract them. They should be watching the Super Bowl or sitcoms or, violent movies or something. Every once in a while you call on them to chant meaningless slogans like "support our troops," you got to keep them pretty scared, because unless they're scared properly and frightened of all kind of devils that are going to destroy them from outside, or inside or somewhere, they may start to think, which is very dangerous because they're not competent to think. And therefore it's important to distract them and marginalize them. Well, that's the conception of democracy. And in fact, going back to the business community, the last legal victory for labor really was 1935, the Wagner Act. After the war came the decline of unions, and in fact of a very rich working class culture that was associated with the unions that was destroyed. And we did move to a business-run society at a remarkable level. This is the only state capitalist society, industrial society, which doesn't have even the normal social contract that you find in comparable societies. So outside of South Africa, I guess this is the only industrial society that doesn't even have national health care, where there's no general commitment, even minimal standards of survival for the parts of the population that can't follow those rules and gain things for themselves individually. Unions are virtually non-existent. Other forms of popular structure are virtually non-existent. There's no political parties, no political organizations. It's a long way towards, not totally, but a long way towards the ideal, at least structurally. The media are a corporate monopoly, basically have the same point of view. The two parties are two factions of the business party. Most of the population doesn't even bother voting because it looks meaningless. And they're just, they're marginalized and properly distracted. At least that's the goal. The